One thing that is obviously like really hard to argue against with Trump is his policy, right? I feel like that's what everyone comes back to is like he had good policy, it worked. One of the policies that I always cared a lot about was peace in the Middle East because I mean I'm Middle Eastern, my family's from Lebanon, I still have a bunch of family out there, and Trump was one of the guys that actually brought peace to the Middle East. And now we're sitting here today, like you were talking about earlier, the whole situation is in Israel with the war against them in Palestine, and now Iran is getting involved, and even Lebanon is getting involved. And so, like, talk about, like, I'm just interested to know, why did Trump's policy work in the Middle East compared to what Biden and even Obama was doing before?
The way I like to phrase kind of his foreign policy is almost like peace through savagery, right? Like, homie like he's just like getting into Twitter fights with Kim Jong-un, but like
Rocket Man,
right? But like you knew where he stood, and like he wasn't the opponents. Like if you're looking at like chess, like the opponents had no idea what he was going to do next. But Trump always knew. Like we always knew what he was going to do. Like yeah, like the minutia might change from here to there, but ultimately it's very simple. It's like getting out of foreign conflicts because it's nonsense. Like we shouldn't be giving money to other countries like that. And it's about like defending our own borders. I think that was another thing is you treat our borders and other countries' borders as sacred. It goes a long way in negotiating and things like that. I think in regards to like peace in the Middle East, it was obviously, those Abraham Accords were huge. The even little things like they were allowing, flights from different countries to pass airspace that was never been seen before. You're looking at, you had a really good relationship with Netanyahu. And that was actually a really cool thing. We engaged with him, I think during the camp. It was either during the campaign or after we had won. I'll never forget. We didn't have a photographer like in house. So, like I grab a camera and I follow Trump and Netanyahu to like meet in his house.
Who's that? Just for
the
context.
president or prime minister of Israel.
Yeah, yeah. And he, like the whole apartment is like gold plated, and like those are just some badass dudes. Like they're not gonna think twice about smoking some guys who like, cross them. And I think that's like the hidden element to this that really like preserve peace in that area. Now you look, like we've already covered, like you've got a cadaver in the White House, a corrupt one at that, like he's selling influence left and right. He just like unfroze $6 billion in funding to Iran. We just freed a ton of their prisoners for like no reason. We left all those guns in Afghanistan for like no reason. Like that was awful. And like not only that, but imagine like if you're in the military and you see your commander in chief doing shit like that, like how does that make you feel about stuff?
My cousin's in the Air Force, and he's like,
yeah,
I'm not gonna speak on it, but like,
yeah, no, it's like it's got to be hard to get up and do whatever dumb corrupt shit he's asking you to do every day. And think about like if you're an ally of us, like you feel confident that guy's gonna step up and defend you? Like no fucking way. He's not even getting up out of bed. Like we were talking, he didn't get out of bed this morning to put out a statement, and that's not even something he like thinks up. Like someone writes that shit for him and he signs off on it.
Yep.
So he didn't even get up like at an early hour. No one woke that guy up in the middle of the night to like put out a statement or to call Netanyahu or anything. Like he's putting out tweets at like 10:30 a.m. This should happen at like 3 a.m. That's like totally unacceptable. And I think like this is what happens when you basically vacate leadership in our country. Is people see that and they're going to take advantage of it. I think, what we're also doing with like. I personally think a lot of this comes back to what's going on in the Ukraine. And, Russia is obviously very heavily involved with what goes on with Hamas. And I'm not like a foreign policy expert by any means. I just check Twitter like every 10 minutes, like every other millennial. But like honestly, like it makes sense for them to kind of divide us even further, like than another conflict. This is going to have impact on like gas prices. We can't print money fast enough to like fix this problem the way that we've committed to doing, and like we're gonna have some serious issues. And what I'd also say is the stuff in Israel's been going on for like 12 hours now, and my Twitter feed is all videos from like what's going on there. Right? Have you guys seen any footage of what's going on in Ukraine? Like, do you have any idea? Like, is it as bad as it? Like, we have no idea.
Early on, there was some, but then a lot of it came out, and like
It was
this is
false.
staged, this
I don't
isn't
believe
real.
anything
So like
that I
it was
watched.
hard
Right.
to see much. But there were a ton of videos in the beginning, and then it definitely tapered off a whole
I don't
bunch.
believe anything like if I'm not seeing it, I don't believe it.
Yeah, well, that's probably smart. It makes you probably the
Like
smartest
you think
out
they
of
had
all of us.
propaganda 80 years ago? It's probably so good today. Like you don't know what's real.
Right, and I think like that's like something that the public at large and especially the Biden guys like they take it for granted. They're like, oh my God, you see this TikTok? Like we got to get in there. It's like, let's start funneling more money to Ukraine where my son has got business holdings and is
People
in
will
deep
send
shit.
people will send a quote like an Instagram DM of like a post of a quote from somebody, and it's a completely fake account. I'm like, dude, that's not real. They're like, oh shit. I'm like, oh my god.
It reminds. It's like that Office bit where he's like, if you're a racist, I'll hunt you down with the North. Abraham Lincoln said that. It's like, that never happened.
Yeah, it is really crazy.
But why do you why is there a sinister agenda behind what they're doing? Like, why do they want to just cause chaos like this? I don't understand.
Well, I think yeah, it depends on like who's behind it, right? I think it's likely some sort of Russian, not op, but they're instigating it. Yeah, and that's just what's been going on since the dawn of time in that region. Like, it makes so much sense to just like light a powder keg over there and then walk away if you hate us. And what you got to think about too is our border has been open for like 3 years. Like, we don't have any fucking clues in this country right now. Like, they could all be here. Like, they could be next door, like listening right now, for all we know. This is what happens when you have someone like vacant in the White House, and when you've got guys that put their own needs and their own interests above the interests of the country, and they're very committed to doing things via the status quo.
Yeah, I think people just have like a natural tendency to want to stay in power as well. Biden's got like the whole military industrial complex behind him. It's similar to Trump. Like, he's obviously did great things in the Middle East. And I think like his stance on de-escalation once he gets in office is favorable amongst most Americans. But like when he lost the last election, you could see like that natural like proclivity, like I want to stay in power. I feel like that's just something that both sides have, no?
It's just human.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I get that. I just think like it's easier when you wield the intelligence apparatus the way the left does. When you wield like social media and like we've said it time over time, like legacy media, like all those guys, like they're in his pocket.
Yeah.
So it's not only easier to get tempted to do that kind of thing, but it's also easier to get away with.
Yep.
You know.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed this short clip, check out the full interview here. And if you want to see more clips from this episode, check it out right here.